Shabbos is Shabbos Tisha B'Av, but it's one of the very unique kind of Tisha B'Av. And the Rebbe writes in the Maimorim and the Sichos from 1991 that in this kind of Tisha B'Av, it's easier to have the ability to transform Tisha B'Av into a holiday. Why? Because it's already pushed off. The Shabbos pushes off the fast. So we're not fasting on the 9th of Av, we're fasting on the 10th of Av. So that means Tisha B'Av itself, we're pushing off the fast to the next day. And the Shulchan Aruch says that not only you have to eat the Shabbos, you have to eat like King Solomon ate at his meal, at his time, which the Tanakh says that King Solomon for lunch, they used to slaughter 30 cows just for lunch. Imagine for dinner what they had. If they had 30 cows for lunch, how many cows they had to slaughter for dinner? And that when he had a meal, it was a real meal. It wasn't like us. We have, a steak with a sandwich with French fries and kigel. Over there, there was a meal. It was not just a steak. It was a whole rib. It was a whole thing. You had a ganze suda. So this Shabbos, the Shulchan Aruch says you have to eat and drink like in the time of Shlomo Melech. Kisuda Shlomo Melech B'Shaita. That's what it says in Shulchan Aruch. So that means on this Shabbos, there's more of a revelation, an ability to transform Tisha B'Av into a happy day. Why? Because the Torah says, this is a quote in Eov. Eov was Job, which went through the most horrible life in his experience. It says, Kates Sam Lachoshech. God puts an end to darkness. That means darkness is not something that lasts forever. Kates means an end. Some, he puts the darkness. So the Medrash says that God gave a certain amount of time to the world, how many years it's going to be in darkness. And after that, there's no more darkness. As it says, there's a time to laugh, there's a time to cry. There's a time for happiness, there's a time for birth. There's a time for all kinds of things, there's a time. The same thing with darkness. There's a certain amount of time that God allotted that this universe will have the experience of darkness. But after that, there won't be any more darkness. So he asks, if that's the case, if God allotted a certain amount of time for darkness, so why does Eve have to say that God puts an end to darkness? God doesn't have to put an end to darkness. Darkness to begin with was only given a certain amount of time. He doesn't have to put an end to it. And he answers, there's two ways to get rid of darkness. What's the two ways of getting rid of darkness? One is bringing light. So when you bring light, ma'at or, dorcha harbe choshech, a little light, expels a lot of darkness. So if I bring light, automatically the darkness is gone. However, it doesn't mean that the darkness can't come back later. Now I have light, so the darkness is gone. But when the light is gone, the darkness appears again. Then there is another level. That not only I transform the darkness to light, I bring such a light that there can never be darkness again. So it's not like there's light and therefore there's no darkness. That's one level. Another level is, it's such a light that there's no way that darkness could ever appear again to happen. So the way God created the world to begin with is there's dark and there's light. Whenever there's light, there's no darkness. So that means that darkness is expelled from light. But then Hashem says, Kate Samacheshech. I'm going to make an end to the darkness. Not only am I going to make an end, that there won't be able to be darkness. Even if you want it to be dark, there won't be able to be. How is that practical? So he says, very interesting. Ner mitzvah, v'toira or. There's two kinds of light we have. From a mitzvah is a candle, and Torah is like a daylight. What's the difference? A candle is light. You light a candle, but it has a certain amount of light that it expels and it expresses, and that's it. Torah is compared to the sunlight, which is day. When it's day, it's light. So that's the difference. When a person does a mitzvah, he's able to take darkness and expel it. So the darkness is pushed away, but it could come back. When he learns Torah, he's connected to such a high level of light that there's no darkness anymore. That's why someone asked me, from out of the country, an interesting question. What do you tell an atheist to start doing in Judaism to get them slowly to change their way? Should they tell them to give tzedakah? Because atheists maybe believe in giving tzedakah. Should you tell them to eat gefilte fish on Shabbos? What's the mitzvah? So I said to them an interesting thing. If you want the atheist to slowly start seeing things in a different perspective, just tell them like this. I don't want you to do any mitzvahs, but I want you to study every day a little Torah. There's a book called Towards a Meaningful Life. Read a chapter a day. What happens is when they study Torah, their brain starts to see things, and all of a sudden there's no darkness to begin with. And all of a sudden, boom, they see the light. A mitzvah, okay, they'll give tzedakah, but they're still in that dark hole. So it's like a candle. But if you want the light to be bright, and they should start thinking different, feeling different, and looking at the world in a different perspective, it's all by studying Torah, learning Hashem's words. That's a light that expels the darkness, and there's no darkness to begin with. So Hashem should help that this Tisha B'Av, since it's already pushed off, it should be pushed off completely. So we can actually celebrate Tisha B'Av, not in France, not in Argentina, not in Tenafly, but in Yerushalayim with Mashiach Tzidkeinu v'Meira b'Yameinu. Amen.
Rabbi, can I ask you a question?